It's even worse now, Maharaj. We can barely hear you now.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, now we can hear you.
Okay. Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Agyantamadandasha Dhananjana Shalakayam Chaksuramanitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Samanita Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharine Devase Sasunyavadi Pasacha Shatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Okay. So, Abhishek, if you can, if my voice stops working, if the sound stops working, let me know, okay? Because I won't be able to tell with the headphones on.
Sure, no problem, Maharaj. Happy to do so.
Okay. Okay. We do request everyone to use their camera if they're able. Not that you have to, but preferred, because then I can see who's who and who's here. Just so everybody here is aware, we have a fundraising program for COVID going on for India within ISKCON to provide oxygen, and I don't know exactly what type of equipment they're using. Nitai Gorsuna, do you have the link for that on your computer that you can share? Or Avi, you have that link that you can share?
I don't have mine, but you
Okay, I can get it and I'll send it to you, Nitai,
okay.
within the next day. And if you're interested
Okay.
in helping provide the different types of support, I know there's approximately 7,000 devotees. They say 7,000 devotees living in Mayapur, and 1 out of 10 or 1 out of 7 have COVID. And so there's a lot of need. There's a lot of need in this area. And yeah, so if anyone's interested to help that way, please do talk to Nitai, and Nitai, please remind me to send you that information. I may be able to share it right after I get done tonight. I may have it. I think I have it saved, and if it's in the right place. So I'd like to read from the Bhagavad-Gita, and if you have a Bhagavad-Gita, we can go to chapter 2, verse 40, which is a very, very turning point for the Bhagavad-Gita. Because at this point in the Gita, of course, we know the second chapter is contents of the Gita summarized, or contents of the Gita summarized, that they call it. And in the beginning, it's just a continuation of the first chapter, kind of setting the scene. So at that point, in the beginning of this second chapter, Arjuna decides that he wants to surrender to Krishna. Karpanya dosha samudbhava savava purha samanava bhava. Get too many ahs there for me to get it done. And so he asked Krishna that shashay taham, that I want to become your disciple. And so immediately Krishna, because Arjuna is on the bodily conception of life, he's resigning from his duty as a Kshatriya. He wants to take up the begging profession. And we all know Kshatriyas don't beg. I can give a few Mahabharata versions of that, but we just know that Kshatriyas don't, that's not their nature. They're leaders and they lead. And so it was outside of Arjun's nature. Guna karma is outside of his nature and outside of the natural activities for one who has a Kshatriya nature. So Krishna begins by telling Arjuna that although you're giving so many asochan an vasochastram pragnam vedam shabhasase, although you're speaking like a learned person, that one who would be considered learned, you actually aren't speaking anything that has any spiritual value. All you're speaking of is my cousin, brothers, my grandfather, my guru, my this, my that. And so the Lord begins by that statement, you're speaking this way. And he says to think that if you don't fight this battle, that people won't exit this world. Boy, it's been a long time since I used those verses. Never was there a time when I did not exist, nor you, nor all these kings. We are existing right now. We existed in the past, and we're going to continue to exist in the future. So to think that by not participating in the battle, that your relatives and your grandfather's relative, your grandfather, your guru, your cousin brothers, your all these people will live forever, that's not a case. Then the case is jatasya si dhruvam mitru dhruvam jama mitasya, that for one who has taken birth, death is certain, and for one who has died, birth is certain. Therefore, in the unavoidable discharge of your duties, you can't hesitate. So Krishna goes through all the aspects from about verse number 12 to about 33. He goes through the different nature, the different qualifications. So Najayate Amirate Va Kadachin Nayam Bhuta Bhavana Bhuya, that the soul is unborn, eternal, ever existing, undying, primeval, Nahanyate Hanyamane Sadire, when the body is no longer fit for the soul to inhabit, then the soul sheds that body. Vasamshi Janani Yata Vihaya, just as if the clothes become old and worn, then what happens is that one exchanges them for new ones that aren't tattered. So in the same way, when this body becomes old and worn, then at that point, the soul exchanges this body for another body. And Prabhupada says that to think that one doesn't have another existence or merges in, that there is a void or that there is no other, there's a merging of just energy at the time of death doesn't make sense. And he gives the example that a person is in the car. So the car is compared to the body, and the driver of the body is compared to the soul. So when the car stops and the person gets out of that car, does he not have some other engagement or some other activity that he performs outside the car than he does when he's inside the car? It's just a different thing. Prabhupada said that when I exit this room, he gave an example one time when he was talking to, I think, a Professor Durkheim. I think the tape says it was in Germany, but for somehow or another, they're talking about Switzerland. I don't know. But anyway, Professor Durkheim, he was explaining, if I walk out of this room, I walk into another place. I don't come into nothing. There's no place where we do that. So Krishna explains this over and over and over again, so many different ways. The soul can't be burned by fire, cannot be moistened by water, cannot be withered by the wind. It can't be cut into pieces. There's no way that the soul can ever be. The soul can be harmed at any moment. Just like this body. So I don't know how many times I've burnt myself, but the soul can never be burned. I don't know how, we know all these different things happen to the material body, but these things, the soul is completely separate and distinct from this material body. Yet we place so much emphasis on the body. So much emphasis is placed on the body, whereas the soul the famous play in ISKCON is polishing the cage of the bird and forgetting to feed the bird. Just like you get a pet bird. If Manish is here and his boys are here, they always want pets, So maybe they're not here. I can't pick on them. I like to pick on the young men. So there's just like you get a pet bird. Actually, I would just like to tell everybody that I saw I thought I was in Vrindavan when I was on my walk the other day, because 2 parrots flew into a tree in Dallas, Texas. Vrindavan green, Vrindavan parrot, and I just said, Krishna, Krishna. So anyway, you take a parrot and you have a pet parrot, and you put it in the cage, and you polish the cage, you put jewels in the cage, you do so many things for the cage, but you forget to feed the bird. The purpose of the cage is to protect the bird, and the purpose of the cage is to allow you to feed the bird and do so many things. And so in the same way, this body is just like a cage, and we're like the bird residing within the cage. And so if we don't feed the soul, if we don't feed ourselves spiritual nourishment, then all we're doing is taking care of the cage, then that value is very, very low. We're meant to actually utilize this human form of life for serving the Supreme Personality of Godhead and freeing ourselves from the repetition, samsara dava nanalita loka, the repetition of birth and death within this material world. So Krishna goes through all this, and I think it's up to about 32, 30. Actually, it goes up to verse 30. And then Krishna, I've explained this to this group or other groups many times. Krishna goes through 4 or 5, from 30 to about 40, 45, yeah. It goes up to about 38. I'm getting technical here, I'm sorry. Where Krishna all of a sudden, Krishna tells Arjuna, you're not the body, you're not the body, you're not the body, your spirit, soul, you're meant to be like this. And then all of a sudden, he tells him, you're a Kshatriya. Kshatriya is a bodily designation. Kshatriya, Brahmana, Vaishya, Sudra, these are all bodily designations. Krishna tells Arjuna, you're not the body, you're not the body, that's not that your uncle, your grandfather, your guru, they're not the bodies, nobody's the body, everybody's not the body. Want to hear a funny story? Raise your hand. Just seeing if anybody's awake. Thank you, Shiromani. So, remind me of where I'm at. Oh yeah, because I'm going to get into the point where Krishna just all of a sudden says you're a Kshatriya. So I remember one time, I just moved into the Gainesville temple. It was about 76. Came from the Winnipeg temple to Gainesville, and there at the Sunday feast. So we had this beautiful property. We do have a nice property now too. We had this really nice property. And there's probably 20, 25 students there. And the devotees, we had about 30, 40 devotees living in the property. And Amarindra, our temple president, big, burly guy, big, very strong, very, very strong preacher. Manj, who are you communicating with?
Maj, I'm laughing at you.
I'm just teasing you. You told me I was gonna. You weren't gonna be on the screen, so I couldn't call you out. But then you're on screen, so I thought I had to call you out because that's what you wanted.
I finished quickly so that I would have my camera on.
Oh, okay. So anyway, he's preaching, you're not the body, you're not the body, you're not the body. The body is like a car, the soul is like the driver, the body is like a chariot. So many different examples. So finally, one kid just raised his hand. He goes, I'm confused. If I'm not this body, then whose body am I? If I'm not, because it's so much absorbed in thinking that I'm this body and he was told, you're not the body, you're not the body in so many different ways. He became so confused. He just goes, I can't figure it out. If I'm not this body, then whose body am I? But it's brilliant because our Miranda said, your body is Krishna's body. And the kid goes, what? I'm Krishna? And I goes, no, your body belongs to Krishna. It's meant to be utilized in the service of Krishna. Anyway, it was brilliant question. And it came to a really philosophical and spiritually potent conclusion. So anyway, Arjuna is being told you're not the body, you're not of this, you're not of that. Then all of a sudden Krishna tells him you're a Kshatriya. Rarely do such opportunities to come to such Kshatriya, to where you're able to fight on religious principles. Actually, within the presence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, within the actual presence of the Lord, anyone who leaves this world in the presence of the Lord is immediately liberated. And so Arjuna, Krishna tells Arjuna in so many different ways, people will think you're a coward. For one who has been honored, dishonor is worse than death. Anyone ever been dishonored? Raise your hand. You've been dishonored? We've all been dishonored, isn't it? Yeah, just like every year. Gators beat the volunteers. They can't. I knew. I just threw that in for Abhishek and Mund because hey, Savani, so this year the Gators will probably get beat by Tennessee just so that my honor is defeated. But all these, you wonder why there's so many Gators in Florida, because they're all former Florida University football fans. And you wonder why there's so many oranges at the grocery store in Knoxville, because so the point being, now I'm trying to get a little serious, is that if that's possible, is that our Krishna just tells Arjuna, all of a sudden you're a Kshatriya. And then he says, now listen, he said, I've described this knowledge through analytical study, just like analyzing the fact that you're not the body. Now listen to how you can perform this fruitive activities. And without getting, now listen as I explain in terms of working without fruitive results. When you act with such knowledge, you can free yourself from the bondage of work. So this is very important because everyone's engaged in activities. And so as we engage in these activities, we have to understand that there's a reaction to each action that we perform. And so if we can dovetail our activities in the service of Krishna, we can dovetail these activities in service of Krishna, which is called karma yoga. And that karma yoga is utilizing yet karoshi jadasnasi jatahoshi dadati, that whatever we eat, whatever we give away, whatever we offer, whatever austerities we perform, all these different things that we do in life, whatever we do those in an act of love for Krishna, although it's within our nature. It's within our nature. And it's the things we may like to do, but we do those for Krishna, as long as they're not sinful. We have so many things that are sinful that we like to do, but we give up sinful activity. Vishayava nivartante nirahara shadehina. That we give up the sinful activity, though the taste of that activity may remain. But engaging our senses in those same activities, our same senses, our same knowledge acquiring senses, our same working senses, we engage those in the service of Krishna because they have to be engaged. They can't be unengaged. And then padam dristvande vartante. By doing that, we'll slowly get a higher taste. And when we get that higher taste, that karma yoga leads us into bhakti yoga, where one selflessly serves Krishna. In other words, one no longer needs to act according to one's own nature. One actually wants to act according to what Krishna wants, what Krishna desires. So tonight's verse is what happens if one does that. It's a very poignant verse because of the situation in the world with so much trauma and so much. I mean, it's just like it's too much. It's too much, actually. It's actually just the right amount because God doesn't make mistakes. God doesn't make mistakes. That's how he got to be God. One of my famous quotes from one of the famous comedians: God don't make mistakes. That's how he got to be God. So this is a very famous verse. Nehabi kamanastosti patravaya navidyate swapam apyasya dharmasha trayate mahato bayat. That in this endeavor, there is no loss and diminution. In other words, this endeavor is that when you act in such knowledge, you can free yourself from bondage of work in terms of working without fruitive reactions. So in this endeavor of devotional practice, karma yoga, this endeavor, there is no loss or diminution. And a little advancement on this path can protect one from the most dangerous types of fear. The most dangerous types of fear. So I think, and I remember it probably brings this up in the commentary, but if you start a material activity, if it's not taken to the completion, then you don't get the result. Just like you want to build a skyscraper building, until it's built and finished and occupied, it's not complete. But in spiritual life, even if you only get 10% done, then you begin at 11% in your next lifetime. Anything we gain spiritually in this lifetime can never be taken away. There's never any loss to it, and there's never any diminution. Diminution, Manju, can you look that word up for me? And then when you have it, raise your hand. Diminution. I think it means like eroding or.
Say it again, Raj.
Diminution. Diminution. So the idea is that it doesn't go away. So if we gain 10% God consciousness in this lifetime, in our next lifetime, we start at 11. If we get 1%, we start at 2. It's an incremental, it goes up. You find it, Manju? Ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Yeah, you're on.
The removal or conversion of an amine group. This is chemistry, Raj. I don't think that's right.
Okay, I'll look it up on my phone in a second. So
I don't think that's right.
my phone's a smartphone. Yours is
mine's it's based on the user, so mine's dumb.
No, you're not dumb, smart. You got yours. You're in charge of your company there. So it can protect one from the most dangerous types of fear. There was one person that came to visit the farm one time when His Holiness Rida, I call him HCG, when His Holiness Rida Nandamars was there. His name was Professor Caption. He was the chairman of the Department of Department of Psychology at the University of Miami. And he came up for a weekend to visit Maharaj. And I don't know exactly how he did this, but he interviewed people, and he was asking their greatest type of fear. And one of the types of fear is the fear of death. And so he arranged some type of psychological situation or some type of experiment where anyone who volunteered to go into that experiment would experience the moment of death. And some people came in and said, I don't worry about death. Some people said, I'm completely afraid of death. It was from 0 to 100, A to Z, as they say some places, for people claiming. And when they underwent this psychological experiment, I don't know if it was hypnosis. I don't remember exactly what it was. Diminution, the act, fact, or process of diminishing, lessening, reduction. So it cannot be lessened, it cannot be reduced. And so he had these people go through, and every single one of them, when they came to that moment where they felt their mind, it was just in their mind, it wasn't a factual thing. When they came to that moment, they panicked. They had that last moment, that last aha. And so he was saying that this process, Krishna is saying that this process will protect us from the most dangerous type of fear. So one of the most dangerous types of fear is when we have to exit this body. When we have to walk from, it's crazy because all we're doing is just like, it'd be like me walking out this door over here and going onto my patio. There's no need for fear out there. There has to be, what we need is to have knowledge of what's on the other side of that door. Now, I have knowledge on what's on the other side of that door. It's a patio, it's got a light, it's got a fan, it's got a rocking chair. There may be some people walking around. Generally, there's no adverse people there. But what happens is that because I have that knowledge is what's on the other side of the door, the amount of fear, because there's always a little bit of fear. You don't know, there may be a snake, there may be a spider. Always, there's definitely mosquitoes coming out. But I can deal with that. And the idea is because I've gained a certain amount of knowledge Therefore, the amount of fear or the amount of apprehension that I have of going through that door is reduced so much. So in the same way, when one gathers knowledge of their spiritual being, when one gathers knowledge of their relationship with the Supreme Lord Krishna, the effect of what does it say? Krishna say, Mrityu Sarva Haras Shaham. I am all pervading death. When death approaches, we don't see anything other than Krishna, because Krishna is death. The soul does not die. Only the changing of the body happens. So that is the benefit of coming in contact with Krishna consciousness. That is the benefit of coming in contact with Srila Prabhupada and Srila Prabhupada's movement. That anyone who's had any little association with a Vaishnava, with any one of Srila Prabhupada's books, any one of Srila Prabhupada's devotees, be they this generation or the last generation, or anyone who's had any type of prasadam and heard the holy name, has done any type of devotional experience, let's put it that way, had any type of devotional experience in relationship to Krishna, in relationship to the Parampara, that person is actually protected. That person is actually protected. So I would like to read Srila Prabhupada's purport here, and maybe we can open it up for discussion here a little bit. So Srila Prabhupada's purport: activity in Krishna consciousness, or acting for the benefit of Krishna without expectation of sense gratification, is the highest transcendental quality of work. Boy, a lot of qualifiers in there, huh? A lot of qualifiers. Acting for the benefit of Krishna without expectation of sense gratification. Woo. Even the GBC had a vote one time as their pizza in the spiritual world. And I don't know if that was without desire for sense gratification. I do know that, I don't know if anybody on the GPC was going to refuse to go back to Godhead if there wasn't pizza, but all I know is they took a vote and they voted it in. There is pizza in the spiritual world. Is the highest transcendental quality of work. I just know I'd wake everybody up if I said pizza. You bring up pizza, everybody comes to life. Actually, His Holiness Hridayananda Maharaj says it's eating the designation, because it's just some white bread, cheap canned tomato sauce, and some hard old cheese, but you give it a name, pizza, and everybody gets excited. He calls it eating the designation. Anyway, so much for my 8 Hridayananda Maharaj quotations for the day. So this devotional service, activity in Krishna consciousness. In other words, we're already active. Every single living entity is active by nature. It's the active, the soul is present. It activates the body. There's a nice verse coming up in the beginning of the 3rd chapter where Prabhupada really, Prabhupada explains that Krishna explains, everyone is forced to act helplessly according to the qualities acquired from the modes of material nature. Therefore, no one can refrain from doing something, not even for a moment. We have these qualities. We're forced to act helplessly. And Prabhupada says in the beginning of the purport here, this is verse 3-5, if you want to take a look. It is not a question of being in body, but it is the nature of the soul to be always active. Without the presence of the spirit soul, the material body cannot move. The body is only a dead vehicle to be worked by the spirit soul, which is always active and cannot stop. Talk about, calling it out. Huh? The body is simply a dead vehicle to be manipulated. Is that what Prabhupada said here? I lost the spot here. The body is only a dead vehicle to be worked by the spirit soul. We can't see that's the nature. We're always going to be active. So activity in Krishna consciousness, or acting for the benefit of Krishna without expectation of sense gratification, is the highest transcendental quality of work. So all we have to do is change it. Whatever we're doing, we just change it over to Krishna. So Prabhupada continues, even a small beginning of such activity finds no impediments, nor can that small beginning be lost at any stage. We may think, how is it possible that there's no impediments? I personally feel so many impediments, even a small beginning. So what this means is that there's no impediment. In other words, even if we engage to a small degree, there's no impediment that can reduce that. Nothing can take that away. That'll always be in our permanent spiritual bank account. That's another famous play that we used to do. Not only the bird in the cage, but we used to do that one, making the deposit into the wrong account, the bank deposit into the wrong account. Something I wish would happen to me. Get somebody deposit into my account by mistake.
Me too, man.
Okay, Manj, you're in. We're all in. I think everybody here wants to have that happen. Raise your hand. So the idea is that it cannot be lost at any stage. Anything we do for devotional service is never lost. So Prabhupada continues, any work begun on the material plane has to be completed, or else the whole attempt becomes a failure. But any work begun in Krishna consciousness has permanent effect, even though not finished. My guess, unless you're a Nityasiddha means eternally liberated soul who was sent here personally by Krishna to save the world, that we're all here members of that category of persons that didn't finish our spiritual life in the previous life and have now gotten the opportunity to once again engage in spiritual life in this lifetime. We've gained a certain amount of spiritual growth, so that when we have the opportunity to come in contact with spiritual practices. It's described in Nectar of Devotion that one cannot engage in devotional service without previously having been engaged in some sort of devotional service. So then one will say, well, how do I first begin engaging in devotional service? One builds up pious credits, one gets Gyata Sukriti, one unknowingly engages in the devotional service of the Lord, and even unknowingly one can make advancement in spiritual life. Just like every time I drive down I don't drive that much, but every time I drive down the road and you have a sign, there's a sign up on the store, Sale a Rama. You say Sale a Rama, you say Rama, you get benefit for saying Rama, which is 1,000 times more than saying Vishnu. Imagine that. Isn't it 1,000? Yeah, is it 3 times or 1,000 times more than Vishnu? I can't remember, something like that. Anyway, it's a lot more. And so the point is that even unknowingly, we're not knowing, just like Ajamil, when he cried out for Narayan, he wasn't crying out for 4-armed Narayan. He was crying out for 2-armed Narayan, his son. He was crying out for his son, but he was crying the name of Narayan. But because Krishna doesn't take into account those types of situations, he only takes into account that this person was chanting my name. And because that person chanted my name, I'll be present. I'll be present. So any work that's done any work begun in Krishna consciousness has permanent effect, even though not finished. Whereas in the material world, if it's not finished, it doesn't have the same effect. The Prabhupada continues, the performer of such work is therefore not at a loss, even if his work in Krishna consciousness is incomplete. 1% done in Krishna consciousness bears permanent result. So at the next beginning is from the point of 2%, whereas in material activity without 100% success, there is no profit. Just say in my last lifetime, I was, what example did Gary Raj Swami use? J.P. Getty, like the richest guy in the world. Was that when he gave class here? Remember that class? He gave this class. J.P. Getty was the richest man in the world. Somebody interviewed him and says, "What, in one word, explain your philosophy?" More. I just want more. He was the richest guy in the world. All he wanted was more. I explained this to somebody recently. And then they said, "What do you think about when you're alone and you're just thinking?" He goes, "How to pay the bills." You want more, and then all wanting more is, how do I pay the bills for all the more that I got? But so just imagine in my last life, is JP Getty, is he passed on? I don't know this person. I think he's passed on. So just say in my last lifetime, I was JP Getty, and I go down to Bank America and I just knock, you got to get an appointment. You can't walk, you got to knock on the door. And I say, yeah, my last life, I was JP Getty. Can I can I get a copy of my checking account, a copy of one of my checks and write one out to you? They'll say, sure, come on in. And then the little paddy wagon will come in and they'll have me going over to where Nitai works because I'm not qualified to be with everybody else that's crazy in this world. If I think I'm JP Getty, they're not gonna honor that. So even if I gain something, it doesn't last. So here, Prabhupada continues, Ajamil performed his duty in some percentage of Krishna consciousness, but the result enjoyed at the end was 100% by the grace of the Lord. Oh, I just got a message from one of my best friends in the whole world. Some percentage of Krishna consciousness, but the result that he achieved at the end was 100% by the grace of the Lord. There was a very nice verse in this, which is 157:17. And I'll just give you the Sanskrit. If a person gives up his occupational duty and works in Krishna consciousness, and then falls down on account of not completing his work, what loss is there on his part? Just like so many people, we gave up everything to join the Hare Krishna movement. Actually, Anita, you asked me to give this group the story of my first 24 hours in the Hare Krishna movement. So someday I'll give you that.
Especially the Lota.
Yeah, the Lota. Yeah. Anyway, we don't have time tonight because it takes about 20 minutes. So maybe we'll do it on my next monthly installation here. So even if someone gives up his occupational duties, I quit college, not to, Shriman, you're in it for the long run here now. You understand? You have to be a doctor for Krishna, all right? That is Shriman, right? That's not Sridhar, is it? Yeah. You never know. They change bodies so quick at that age. It's hard to keep up with them. Yeah, even Vishnu Charan is looking to see if it's the right son. Oh, hey, Sridhar, there you go. Oh, wow, nice haircut. So the idea is that even we gave everything. We dropped everything. I was working for the U.S. government. Even my father said, I can't believe you're giving up that job. He said, you don't even have to work when you work for the government. And and so the point is like, but even if you do that and you engage in Krishna conscious activities, but later on you give it up, so much is benefited for you. So much, even so much benefit is there. Even if you give it up, that is in your permanent bank account. So then the verse continues on, and what can one gain if one performs his material activities perfectly? Or as the Christians say, what profiteth the man if he gain the whole world yet suffer the loss of his eternal soul? So in other words, the point here being is that one can practice. There's another verse that describes this. It says that one can practice varna and ashram perfectly. Varnashram. This is the word everyone here knows. Varnashram. One's varna, one's occupation, one's ashram, brahmachari, vanaprat. Brahmachari means brahmachari, brahmacharini, same word. Brahmachari, householder, retired, renounced, whatever one is in. Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Sudra, even if you perform that all perfectly, but you do not remember Krishna or do not know Krishna, then all that activity is a useless waste of time. If the description is given, it's just like sifting, what do they call that when you do the shifter in India? The shift, you're shaking the shifter. What do you call that thing? Nitai, help me. What do they call that thing where they shift the something's wrong with my headphones. Can you hear me? Abby, can you hear me?
No,
Great.
Martin, you move forward. We lost you.
Can hear
When you
me?
started doing your shaker, we lost you.
I'm getting too riled up here. And so all you have left is the husk. You're not getting any grain on the bottom. All you get is the activity. It's just like going to the gym and getting a workout.
That
You
called
don't get
Deki
any
Maharaj.
spiritual.
That called
Yeah,
Deki.
yeah, okay.
Prabhupada used that, yeah.
Yeah. And so the point is, but if you gauge just a little tiny bit in devotional service, that carries you through unlimited lifetimes, gives you the opportunity to engage in devotional service again. So Prabhupada continues, material activities and their results end with the body, but work in Krishna consciousness carries a person again to Krishna consciousness. If someone's done something for Krishna consciousness in this lifetime, we don't have to worry. We don't have to worry because they're going to be engaged in Krishna consciousness again. At least one is sure of having a chance in the next life of being born as a human being. We don't even know that. We know that because we've engaged in devotional service. So many people, Prabhupada says, I've heard that even in this lifetime, by their sinful activities, they take on the features of the next beast that they're going to be, the next living entity they're going to be. So being born as a human being, either in the family of a great cultured brahmana or a rich aristocratic family, that one will give one further chance for elevation. That is the unique quality of work done in Krishna consciousness. It affords us the ability to understand that, just like I'll quote His Holiness Hridayananda Maharaj again, because a lot of times when devotees leave this world, someone said, "Do you think they went to the spiritual world? Do you think they went to the heavenly planets? What do you think happened?" And His Holiness Hridayananda Maharaj says, "We don't worry about the geography. We don't worry about the geography because wherever that person has gone, they're with devotees of Krishna. And because they're with devotees of Krishna, we know that they're being protected. Because Krishna protects every devotee. Sarvadharma pratyajya mam ekam saranam raja. It's just because they've surrendered, even if it's just, there's my alarm telling me I have to go to bed. I set my alarm to go to sleep, not to get up. So the idea is that we don't worry. I mean, it doesn't mean that we don't grieve. It doesn't mean that we don't have sorrow. It doesn't mean that we don't have lamentation. But we don't lament too much. That was the point that Krishna told Arjuna in that verse that I quoted, that asochan anvasochastram bhagnam vedam sabhasha say. It's described that if lamentation is okay, lamentation is purification. When we lose loved ones, when we lose someone close to us, when we see something like this in this world, we know that there's lamentation and it's purification. But over lamentation, we don't want to get to that point because we have transcendental intelligence. We have the intelligence to help us focus our mind on the ultimate goal of our existence. Most people don't have that benefit. Most people don't have that. Most people, they leave this world in complete ignorance. Just like if I wake up, I mean, this used to happen to me when I was traveling a lot. I would wake up and I wouldn't know where I was at. I'd have to turn the light on. Oh, I'm in Hong Kong. I couldn't. Oh, I'm in Beijing. Oh, I'm in Vrindavan. Oh, I'm at Nitai Gaur Sundar's. I won't think I'm, I'm at Shiromani's old house, not the new house. Like, I've been to the new house too. So I used to wake up when I stayed at your house. I had to turn on the light to remember where I was at. This is the same way. So because we have knowledge of where we are right now. When I walk out that door, because I have knowledge, I'm not worried about it. I'm cautious, but I have no fear. The fear is reduced to practically just to a little. What do they say? What's that famous verse that just, crossing the ocean of material existence is like an ocean, but it's reduced to the size of a calf's hoof print. Anybody can step over a calf's footprint. Anyone can. Any little baby can walk over a calf's footprint. But these are some of the points. Any discussion points on this? I know I kind of rambled on tonight. We could open it up for discussion. Great verse, actually. I love this verse. Vishnu Charan, I see you turn your microphone on.
All right, so it says this path can protect one from the most dangerous type of fear. So is that the fear of being born again, maybe not in a human form of life, maybe animal or tree or something like that?
Yeah, I heard that. I used to always think that was in the purport. And then one time I read the purport again, and I said, actually, it's not in the purport, but it's somewhere when Prabhupada quotes it quotes this verse, Nihabi Kamanasati. The dangerous type of fear is the fear that I won't have the opportunity to have a birth where I'll be able to engage in devotional service. That's a very serious thing. Even Bharat Maharaj, verses like this are a good example for Bharat Maharaj. See, Bharat Maharaj achieved the preliminary stage of love of God, Bhava. Usually when you reach that stage, you don't fall down. It's described that once you reach that Bhava stage, you don't fall down. But because Bharat Maharaj, I've explained this many times before, and it's philosophical speculation, and I've heard other devotees explain it this way. I think, if I remember right, usually I hear things and then I just repeat. And so Bharat Maharaj, because he was a Kshatriya, his nature was to protect, but he renounced the whole kingdom and he went to the forest and he was engaged in meditation and devotional service. And so he reached that stage, but because of his nature to protect, he was still a Kshatriya. He was just he was doing that Vanapras, which is required of Kshatriya Dharma. And so when the deer jumped across the river from the roar of the lion or tiger or whatever it was, and it lost the fawn on the other side, began to protect that. So the nature Kshatriya to protect. So he thought of that baby deer, that fawn at the time of death, so he had to take birth as a deer. That was not, excuse me, that was from Mother's Day meal yesterday. We had falafel and all that kind of stuff, which is completely off my diet. And so what happened is that when he took birth as a deer, but because he had performed devotional service, he didn't forget his devotional service. In the body of a deer, he knew I was engaged in devotional service on my last life, but I just slipped a little bit. Now, I don't know if I'd really like to know how I slipped in my last lifetime, because I would really be upset. I just know I did, because I'm here. And so Bharat Maharaj actually had the benediction to be in the body of a deer. Now, if anybody comes over to me when I'm taking prasad and wants to take something off my plate, I'll whack them. I promise you, I'll whack you. I'll just give you a whack, right? But if a little puppy comes around or the little squirrels come around, I just take stuff off my plate and I start throwing it to them. So in the same way, the sages, the deer was smart enough to go to sit. Of course, anything off my plate, you'll probably get some disease. But the idea is like the sages would honor prasadam and they use leaf plates, right? Sages use leaf plates, and the deer would go over there and eat the leaf plates. So he's eating the remnants of the sages, and he was sitting there listening. If an ordinary human being comes over, they just tell him, we're having intimate discussion. I'm sorry you can't be here. But the deer, they think the deer is not understanding, so they allow the deer to be there. And the next lifetime, Bharat Maharaj remembered his previous life also. And that lifetime, he decided, even though he was born in the Brahmin, very, very educated, and his educated nature came out when he spoke to King Rahugana, because King Rahugana was explaining, what are you? Are you weak? Are you this? Are you skinny? Are you this? He says, yes, I'm all the above. And so his true knowledge came out when King Rahugana was there. And so this not having a human body, is because in the human form of life only do we get the opportunity to engage in devotional service. There are a few cases of animals and stuff like that, but basically that was one of the fears, Vishnu Charan. That was one of the fears that Prabhupada mentions somewhere in some book in a purport when he quotes this verse. But as devotees, we don't have that fear anymore. Because even if we take birth as an animal, we're going to be eating prasadam somewhere. We're going to be a dog in somebody's house. We're going to be dog. Anyone else?
So Maharaj, you just said you quoted HDG about geography. So that way we don't have to worry about biology, because what Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, we have to take when a dog is a Vaishnava house, that will be, as you were saying, that will be just wonderful. So the fear, being devotee, you get out of that fear, because you know that you are in a path which will take you further and further in association of devotees. That is the security, only security we get, and not to give up the like I was listening to Naranjan Maharaj earlier, like Mukund Datta. He just heard that I will have the Lord's Lord's darshan in 100,000 lives. He didn't hear about 100,000.
100 million.
100 million life. And he didn't hear 100 million. He said, I have his darshan. That was good enough for him. He started jumping and
Haribo, Haribo, Haribo. Only 100 million birds. Only 100 million birds.
So he and Lord immediately called him in. Okay, so the 100 million is done. So that is not just a story. There's a fact. Fact of this Krishna consciousness. So thank you, Maharaj. Wonderful.
Wasn't it Uddhava that prayed to take birth as a blade of grass near Kusum Shrove? Was that the one? Yeah, that's the one,
yes,
right?
Maharaj. Yeah, Maharaj.
So, I mean, you ask anybody in the material world, what do you want to be in your next life? King, queen. You ask a devotee, what do you want to be? A blade of grass in Vrindavan? Anyone else? I'm imitating one of my friends. I love that pose, Sri Rupa Manjari, the thinking pose Sri Rupa Manjari has. She's always paying really close attention. It's very nice to see. Okay, so as you all know, my alarm clock to go to sleep went off 10 minutes ago. I still have to make my hot milk. And so if there's no other comments or, what would you say, reflections? Looking around. Okay, so hopefully we'll see you in a month. And I pray you and your family and your immediate family and your extended family stay healthy and safe during this trying time. And Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna, Hare Bol, everyone. Hare Bol, Manju. Sorry I insulted you again, Manju.
I didn't, Maharaj.
I promised I wasn't going to do that anymore.
No, Maharaj. Didn't do anything.
The problem is you can't iron a dog's tail straight. It's impossible.
No, Maharaj, stop it.
I will.
All right.
Okay,
So with
Manjari,
that-
I think we'll have to your schedule have to be readjusted. So I think it's already 8:55, so we should go on with the Narsinga prayer and then Vishnu Pranam. Is that okay? Vishnu Prabhu, that's okay with you? Okay, thank you. Okay.
Well, I don't. Oh wait. I don't think Amit Bhaiya is. Oh, they're here. I didn't see them. Oh, they're here.
He's here. Yeah, he's
They're
been
here.
here
They're here.
for,
That's my bad. That's my bad.
he's
Okay.
been here for a long time.
My bad. My bad. Sorry.
Okay.
Sorry. Okay. The
Okay,
girls
we
can take it
make
away.
announcement. Yeah.